The South's love and passion for college football is unmatched. And while college football has given the SEC more national championships than any other conference in the last 10 years, it's also given the conference a whole lot of anguish. And while it's easy to track down which teams have been feasting on natties, it's a lot harder to see the teams that have been getting second and third helpings of just straight up suffering. I mean, yeah, sure, you could take a look at the standings, but that's not going to tell you the whole picture. That's why I looked at every team's losses, how many coaching contracts they've burned through, how many times they failed to meet preseason expectations, and the success of their closest and fiercest rival. And then I took that data and I poured it into what I call the Suffering, Embarrassment, and Commitment Index, or the SEC Index. Because, of course, the thing that gives us the most joy also provides the most pain. And we'll kick things off with the least miserable fan base according to the index, Georgia. Their one legitimate gripe from the last 10 years is probably just having to sit in Atlanta traffic to go see the Dogs play in 8 different SEC championship games. Georgia's had it good, like real good. 4 SEC championships, 2 national championships, and 0 human rabies cases, which if you've seen them crawling around on all fours barking, that's an accomplishment. Kirby Smart took the reins of his alma mater and he led him to the promised land. And Georgia is the only team that still has the same head coach for the last 10 years, the only SEC team to do so. So yeah, they are constantly reminded that they're still very much living in the good days when they see that visor and tongue wagging down the sideline. Because some teams on this list no longer get to see the greatest coach of their lifetime on the sideline because he's too busy filming commercials with Ducks and Deion Sanders or getting in hot tubs with his t-shirt on. Yeah, that brings us to number 15 on the list, Alabama. Technically, Bama fans aren't the least miserable team in the SEC. They're not the happiest anymore. Do they still love to complain? Abso-freaking-lutely. But it's kind of like going to Ruth's Chris and getting the perfect medium rare steak but sending it back to the kitchen just because you wanted something to be mad about. Meanwhile, the rest of the conference is eating their lunch in their car wondering, whose hair is in my Big Mac? In the last 10 years, Bama's had 2 national championships, 5 title game appearances, 7 playoff berths, and 0 suffering. At all. Unless you count dropping from preseason number 5 down to 17th and having to pledge your undying loyalty to your coach's magical black hoodie, then I guess, yeah, Bama has suffered from mental illness. Up next is our third least miserable fan base in the SEC, Vanderbilt. Vandy fans have their expectations in check better than any other team in the conference, and it ain't even close. But an 0-9 season and back-to-back 10-loss seasons will take its toll on even the most well-adjusted trust fund babies. But their fan base is small, rarely sells out their Sunbelt-sized stadium, and when they do, it's usually filled with fans of the opposing team, or construction workers, or people just looking for a safe space in Nashville from all the flying chairs. I mean, their stadium only has 35,000 seats, and that's a result of a $300 million Vandy United upgrade, which was a renovation to make the stadium smaller. So, yeah, on paper, it probably looks like Vandy has the most miserable fan base in the conference, and probably America. But they straight up refuse to attach their emotional stability to a game. Like a bunch of nerds. I mean, you can still feel bad for them, and most of the conference does have a soft spot for the Commodores. And for one magical season, Diego Pavia made Vanderbilt not just fun to root for, but to watch. Then he opened his mouth and wiped away about 100 years of sympathy in 10 seconds. Our fourth least miserable team might surprise you twice. Once because of who they are, and twice because you probably forgot they were in the SEC. Yep, that's Missouri. Mizzou has spent the last 10 years successfully avoiding 2 things: disappointment and the playoffs. With the exception of a brief Luther Burden-fueled flirtation with relevance, the Tigers usually begin the season unranked and finish it unranked. They don't always sell out. Missouri went 45 years without selling out a full season of home games up until 2024, and that gives you a good idea of how good 2024 had to be. That's kind of the secret to happiness in this conference. You can't be disappointed by a season that you just didn't expect anything from. And it does help when your one true rival is Kansas, a team you've only played once in the last 10 years, and I cannot stress this enough, absolutely sucks. Number 12 on the SEC's board of misery has also been this conference's biggest overachiever, and that team is Ole Miss. Ole Miss opened this 10-year stretch with Hugh Freeze single-handedly collapsing the Rebels' postseason hopes and Oxford's hospitality business. But the Rebels finished it out with just crushing expectations thanks to one Lane Moneybags Kiffin. And even though he's now about as welcome in Oxford, Mississippi as a bagel shop with a New York accent, Lane Kiffin did give Ole Miss their best record in school history and their first top 10 finish in like 50-something years. I mean, it was a true Rebel renaissance. The Rebels really did spend the first 5 years on the ground looking dead, then just springing back to life and sprinting to glory. It's almost like they were faking an injury, which is Kiffin's signature move. Next on our list is the 11th most miserable team, Texas. They say money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you a brand new coach and a crap ton of NIL deals. Before Texas joined the SEC, they hit a bit of a rough patch in the Big 12. Never heard of it. They kicked off multiple seasons ranked in the preseason top 25 and heard whispers of Texas is back, only to have the universe whisper back, nah, how about the Alamo Bowl? But give the Longhorns some credit because they did make it back into the spotlight with 2 straight playoff appearances. Oh, and they have a Manning. Did you hear? They have a Manning. The media doesn't talk about it a lot. And so last season, the polls did the unthinkable, and they named Texas the preseason #1 team in America, the first time in school history. So it wasn't just that Texas is back. That meant Texas is the favorite. And they lost week 1. It was the first preseason #1 to lose their opener in 35 years. Oh, and then they lost 2 more games and just missed the playoffs entirely. So no, money can't buy happiness. Or apparently a win in week 1. Coming in at number 10 on our manifest of the most miserable, Oklahoma. Before they joined the SEC, the Oklahomies had very little to be upset about. Well, besides the tornadoes, the OTA, and Brahms dropping chicken fried steak from the menu. Over the last 10 years, they've had 5 straight conference titles, 3 playoff appearances, back-to-back Heismans. They were a perennial top 5 team. Times were good. But those times were also in the Big 12, so they don't count. And when the Sooners joined the SEC, they immediately face-planted with a 6-7 record. And to make matters worse, Texas came with them and proceeded to beat the fire out of them. But the good news is that there's nowhere left to go but up. The bad news is that the SEC is going to do pretty much everything it can to stop you. And you can watch the SEC try to do just that thanks to SeatGeek. Yeah, SeatGeek sponsored this video, which is great because I love them and I've used them for years. But it's not just me, because with over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, and not just college football. We're talking MLB, NBA, NFL. Heck, if it sells a ticket, SeatGeek's probably got it. Like I said, I love using SeatGeek. As a matter of fact, I used it just a few weeks ago when I was up in Big Ten country to watch the Cubs play at Wrigley. And I was able to pull up the game for that night, look at Wrigley Field, and look at every available ticket in the stadium. And SeatGeek will rate them for you on a scale of 1 to 10 based on what a good deal it is. If it's a green seat, that means that's a pretty good deal. If it's a red seat, that means that, it's hard enough to watch the Cubs play. Don't pay extra for it. Oh, also, SeatGeek will show you what the view from your seat will look like. So that's pretty important in a place like Wrigley. Otherwise, you'll end up with a seat like this. In hindsight, that probably would have been the better option. Anyway, you can check it out for yourself because, of course, I've got a code for y'all. Use the code MATT10 at checkout to get 10% off your next set of tickets with SeatGeek. Again, that's 10% off any tickets with the promo code MATT10. Make sure you click the link down in the description of this video to download the app and have that code automatically applied when you check out. Thanks again to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Now, on to our 9th most miserable fan base in the SEC, the Volunteers of Tennessee. One of the factors in determining a team's misery index score is the success of their rival. Because losing sucks, but losing when your rival is dominating sucks so much more. A lot of Tennessee fans will say that Alabama is the greatest source of misery in their state, but that's simply not true, because it's heart disease. No, true misery is having to live, work, and serve jail time next to the fans of that rival. And unless you're serving up fake moonshine in a Gatlinburg gift shop, the average Tennessee fan is not bumping into a Bama fan every single day. The truth is, Vandy is their true in-state rival and really the only other fan base that Tennessee fans might come in regular contact with. But Vandy, for the better part of forever, has had nothing to brag about. So while some teams have watched their in-state rival hang banner after banner, Tennessee's had to watch Vanderbilt just be Vanderbilt. Vol fans got to suffer in peace. No little brother constantly rubbing it in. I mean, no bumping into Vandy championship merch at the Walmart. No bumping into any Vandy merch at the Walmart. Because Tennessee fans own the whole state. But there's been a strange and fairly unique mercy for Tennessee's anguish. And they've definitely felt some anguish thanks to Jeremy Pruitt and Butch Jones. But that anguish has been contained. And being awful while there's nobody around to laugh at you constantly is pretty much the best gift the SEC can offer. So no, Vol fans, y'all haven't been the most miserable. You may have been the most sad and lonely. So, congrats. Next up is the SEC's 8th most miserable fan base, Kentucky. Some of y'all might have expected to see Kentucky ranked the least miserable on this list because, they don't care about nothing but basketball, but that's simply not true. I mean, yeah, basketball is their first love, but they still pack 61,000 people into Kroger Field to watch the football team play Eastern Kentucky. Wildcat fans show up for football, which is exactly the problem. You can't be miserable about something you don't care about, and Kentucky fans have, unfortunately, chosen to care. I mean, in the middle of our 10-year look back, Mark Stoops gave Big Blue Nation not just something to care about, but something to be proud of. 2 10-win seasons, top 15 rankings, beating Florida, Tennessee, New Year's Bowls. For about 5 years there, Kentucky football was genuinely relevant. And then it fell off a cliff. 4-8 in 2024, 5-7 in 2025, and then they went to Louisville and got shut out 41-0. And then a few days later, Kentucky fired Mark Stoops, who had become the winningest coach in Kentucky football history. Am I saying they made a mistake by firing Stoops? No. They made a mistake making football their second love, y'all. Volleyball's right there. Y'all got national title contenders playing in a gym that holds less people than a Buc-ee's. But give them girls Kroger Field. Moving on to our 7th most miserable fan base in the SEC, South Carolina. One might not look at a South Carolina fan and see suffering, but deep down, underneath all that not safe for work apparel, is a heart that's been broken time and time again. The Coach Boom era ran the program right into a ditch, and the high point since then has been watching Shane Beamer get baptized in Duke's Mayonnaise. So for a program this miserable, the closest thing they've had to a parade is just a few ingredients away from a human potato salad. And outside the gauntlet of the SEC, South Carolina ain't had much luck there either. Their in-state rival, Clemson, has 2 national championships and 6 playoff berths in the last 10 years. So every fall, South Carolina fans get to lose 6 or 7 games in heartbreaking fashion while watching their rival win a championship. Again. I mean, why would you make that your school colors? Having to watch y'all run around on that field looking like the Halloween owl is enough torture. Coming in at number 6 on our list is LSU. In the last 10 years, no team in the SEC has fallen further from its own preseason hype than LSU. In that time frame, they've started the season ranked and gone unranked 4 different times, twice from inside the top 10. But LSU is not a bad team. They've had 2 Heisman Trophy winners, 15 NFL first-round draft picks, and a national title in 2019 with maybe the greatest team in the history of the sport. But then they fired the man who helped them get that national title just 2 years later, a man who, might I say, provided the rest of this conference with an immense amount of joy, and they replaced him with Brian freaking Kelly. And nobody likes Brian Kelly. I don't even think Brian Kelly's family likes Brian Kelly. But LSU paid him $95 million to not make a single playoff. But then they bounced Brian, and the lane train parked itself in Baton Rouge for, again, not a bad LSU team. They're just cursed. They've got everything a program could ask for, but they cannot, for the life of them, get out of their own way. So maybe now you understand why they drink so much down there. Coming in at number 5 on our list is Florida. Now, if this ranking were looking at the 10 years before this one, oh baby, Florida would be in a very different boat. A boat they would years later have a few questions about concerning their coach and a shark, but still a different boat. Because right now, Florida is shipwrecked and stranded on Jorts Island. They're about to be on their 4th coach in 9 years. They've never been to the playoffs, and they were forced against their will to wear these. Ugh. Been a pretty rough stretch for a program that won more games than any other team in the country from 1990 to 2010. But don't you worry, because they've got a 43-year-old with 4 years head coaching experience at a G5 school who's racked up 42 wins to replace a 42-year-old with 4 years head coaching experience at a G5 school where they racked up 40 wins. Hold on, no, that can't be right. That's the same guy. Next on our list is the 4th most miserable team in the SEC, Mississippi State. The Bulldogs don't have the most losses over this 10-year stretch, and they haven't consistently blown up preseason expectations, but State's suffering is a lot like their cowbell tradition. It's unique and unbearable. Start with the chaos at head coach, where the Bulldogs have had more turnover than anyone else in the conference. Dan Mullen left for Florida. Joe Moorhead got fired. Zach Arnett got promoted and then fired and then rehired by the guy that replaced him. And, of course, the tragic passing of college football legend and consummate pirate Mike Leach. 5 coaches, a winless SEC season, and a program that's been rebooted more than Spider-Man. Then factor in that they've spent the last 5 years watching Ole Miss turn into a juggernaut while they lost at home to Toledo by 24. And they paid them $1.2 million to do it. And that, in a nutshell, is the real problem for State. Their misery doesn't come from falling off the top like LSU or Florida. Theirs comes from never really having solid ground underneath them to begin with. There's been no mountaintop for them to fall off of. Just one long stretch of starting over. It's really not a mountaintop in Starkville anyway. I think the highest elevation is the Hilton Garden Inn. And now our 3rd most miserable fan base, Texas A&M. 3 words: battered Aggie syndrome. You probably know the feeling. Just imagine you're in the Taco Bell drive-thru and you're sitting there, you've placed your order, and you're thinking to yourself, why do I do this to myself? That's what it's like being the 12th man. Battered Aggie syndrome is the perpetual expectation of disappointment that unfortunately doesn't actually get better when you win. No, quite the contrary. Winning makes BAS so much worse. Why? While LSU has fallen the furthest from preseason hype in the conference, no team has fallen more repeatedly than Texas A&M. They've opened the season ranked and finished it unranked more times than anybody else in this conference. But the worst part is that battered Aggie syndrome is self-inflicted. They do this to themselves with their checkbook. A&M signed the number 1 recruiting class in 2022, opened the season ranked 6th, and then went 5-7 and lost at home to Appalachian State. And then they paid Jimbo Fisher $76 million to just go away. They've got the biggest stadium in the conference. They've got top-tier facilities, 4-star recruits, and a national title drought that will turn 86 years old this fall. So, yeah, battered Aggie syndrome is pretty much just like Taco Bell. You're lining up for disappointment, knowing you will absolutely crap the bed. And now our 2nd most miserable team, Arkansas. Only 2 teams have had 75 losses over the last 10 years, which is by far the most in the league. And those 2 teams are Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Vandy fans, as you may recall, expect to lose, and were in no way surprised to hear their name after that statistic. Arkansas, on the other hand, has had about a dozen counties vote to go wet over the last 10 years. So yeah, they knew their name was also coming, but they've been drinking real hard to forget it. In 2025 alone, Arkansas lost 6 games by 1 score. 2 of them were by 1 single point. And if you add up the margin in all their losses, the difference between their 2-10 disaster and a pretty decent 8-4 season is just 17 points. That's it. 17. They were 17 points away from being Missouri. I mean, imagine being stuck in such a rut that your best what-if scenario has you looking at Missouri thinking, golly, that could have been us. So, yeah, they're number 2 on this list, but Arkansas should be number 1 on your prayer list. And that leads us to our final team, the most miserable team in the SEC, the Auburn Tigers. 7. Some people say it's the lucky number. In math, it's the only prime number that precedes a cube, whatever that means. In Christianity, it's the number of completion and perfection. And in Auburn, it is a hex. Straight up. Harry Potter craziness. The Tigers just wrapped up their 5th straight season with 7 losses. In the last 7 seasons, they've had 4 different head coaches. And the USGA handicap index held by their former head coach Hugh Freeze, you guessed it, 7. You think he'd have been better as much as he played. Oh yeah, the Hugh Freeze guy we talked about earlier in the Ole Miss section. Yeah, Auburn thought it'd be a good idea to hire that guy. Actually, I should take a step back and clarify something, because it's part of the reason Auburn landed at the top spot on this list. Everyone knows the relationship between SEC programs and its big money boosters, but down on the plains, that relationship is borderline abusive. If watching their team lose on Saturday wasn't enough, Tiger fans have had to watch their team make some of the dumbest hires in the conference in an embarrassingly short period of time, all because the big boy boosters call the shots. And those big boy boosters are pretty dumb. And because of that, Auburn pretty much resides on the coaching carousel. That's why they always put one bench on those things, so Auburn can lay down and sleep and dream about not sucking anymore. And when they do manage to get their feet on solid ground, the best they can do now is just stumble themselves into a Birmingham Bowl loss. And the giant crimson-colored cherry on top of this Sunday of suck is that the team on the other side of the state is coming off the greatest dynasty run in the history of the sport. Because true misery isn't about how good you've been or how bad you are now. It's about the room you're standing in. And Auburn is in a room full of crimson-colored championship banners that they've been trying to set on fire, but they're the only ones that keep getting burned. Every other team on this list has been missing at least one ingredient that would land them on the mountaintop of misery. You need to lose. You need coaching chaos. You need to fall short of expectations repeatedly. And you need to have your rival next door having the freaking time of their life. And Auburn is the only one to suffer through all 4 at the exact same time. So, congratulations, Auburn. In a conference built on anguish and despair, you are the undisputed number 1 most miserable team in the conference. Probably the country. Forget SeatGeek. I probably should have got Better to help to sponsor this. Wait, every shirt that you saw me wearing in this video is available in my merch store, gettinplace.com. So go check it out. Okay, bye.